Hello, family and friends. It is MG, and you are in what we have in store for you today on the Reimagine You Lab podcast. I always have some amazing guests, and today is absolutely no exception. But before we get started, I have to put a few disclaimers out. I want you to go and click the bell so that every Friday when a new show drops, you get the episode first. Yes, you get it first. Click the bell. And I also want you to make sure that if you have subscribed, you like what you're hearing on the channel, definitely go and share this episode with a friend, a family member, a colleague, anybody who you know needs to make some change. All right. So those are my disclaimers. That's it. We're jumping in. Let me tell you that today's guest has spent decades bridging the worlds of business strategy, meaningful communication, and human connection, and she's done it with both grit and grace. Deb Krier invites us to lead with our voice, live with intention, and build influence that matters from the inside out. So, Deb, I gave him a little bit, but we're going beyond the bio. And I'm going to throw it to you. You ready for the ball?
I am ready. And MG, I am just so honored to be on your program. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Well, Deb, you've got to tell them who you are, where you're at, what you do, and how you do it.
Cool. Well, as you said, I'm Deb Krier. People say, where are you? And I'm like, well, I am from Colorado, but I live in Atlanta. And I will always be that Colorado girl. We were talking about it in the pre-chat. Colorado mountain girl. I grew up over 8,000 feet. When we talk mountains, we talk mountains. But I don't ski.
Really? No, it's not a skier. The mountain's right there.
And it was just kind of one of those things that I never really had a desire to do. And then when I got old enough to realize I would break, it was like, nope. So I started my own company, Wise Women Communications, about 25 years ago. We're a full service agency. And we do, all sorts of marketing, PR, social media, whatever the client needs. But I had that big change thrown at me, definitely not something that I signed up for. A little over 10 years ago, I went in for my annual physical, had my mammogram like good girls do, right?
Yeah.
And they actually called before I got home, and I'm 5 minutes from the hospital. They called and they said, you need to come back. Now, I had worked for an oncologist and I worked for the American Cancer Society. So I knew that wasn't, you didn't smile pretty. It wasn't. There's an issue. And so I went back and the initial diagnosis was stage 0 breast cancer, which means, we don't really get overly concerned about it. I had little bumps, just tiny little. In fact, the computer is what saw them. They're called microcalcifications. So no lump, no bump, no anything big and visible.
Nothing that you would have seen.
And so I go to Dr. Google, and folks, don't do that. No. But I didn't know what microcalcifications were. And so I Googled it, and I discovered that all women of a certain age, as the hormones change in our bodies, we get these microcalcifications. And obviously, the vast majority of the time, there's no problem. Well, I'm special.
There was a problem.
Mine had started to clump together. So they send me to a breast surgeon. She did a couple biopsies. Those came back negative. And I didn't even get an oncologist because everybody kept saying, this is nothing to worry about. And so eventually, though, we did a little bit more invasive and pulled some lymph nodes and discovered that 8 of 12 lymph nodes were positive for cancer, which not only meant I was not stage 0 anymore, I was stage 3. And so it was like, okay, well, this is not fun. And so you talk about the change, I literally looked at my doctor and I said, I'm sorry, I don't have time for this. And she looked at me like, darling, you need to make time. And so did get an oncologist. Long story short, started chemo. I was going to do the very traditional approach. I was going to do chemo. I was going to do surgery. I was going to do radiation. My first chemo just about did me in. I ended up in septic shock. There was a debate as to how fast I was going to die. And I kept thinking, hello, I get to vote. Hello.
Yeah. Let me in on this decision.
Yeah.
Right?
And so I ended up spending 7 weeks in the hospital, in and out of lots of surgeries, in and out of ICU, all sorts of fun things like that. And in amongst that, I told him, I said, on the bad side, right? The side that had the ick. I said that my rib hurts. And so then we got to do the really fun bone test, and test for cancer. And that came back as inconclusive, which meant it wasn't cancer, but it wasn't not cancer. And so my oncologist at that point said, you know what, we're calling it stage 4. That way we can do pretty much whatever we want. So my official diagnosis is stage 4 triple positive metastatic breast cancer. And I chose to have a double mastectomy without reconstruction. Got a complication from that my doctor had never seen, all sorts of things. But kept, as much as I could, I kept working the entire time. I tell people hospitals and doctors' offices have really good Wi-Fi. Plus it gave me something to think about. Right.
Something different. Something else.
Yeah. And so, I just, for 10 years been going merrily along. I am actually still in active treatment. I go in every 21 days. Along the way, I was diagnosed with basal cell carcinoma, which that sounds really horrible, right? That's your basic skin cancer. And the freckly redheaded kid that lived at 8,000 feet didn't know what sunscreen was. So they were all really surprised that I was as old as I was without getting that. And then several years ago, I did develop thyroid cancer, and it is a totally different cancer. So I've had 3 separate cancers. But along the way, I know I just am the overachiever, the special girl, right? All of that stuff.
You defied all the odds, though. Like that's what I love about
I did. Because I have made it to my 10-year mark, and with a stage 4 diagnosis, that is, that is the thing you really want to aim for. And stage 4 does not go away. It is not considered curable, but it can hide, and it could hide forever. I mean, it might never come back. But along the way, my business coach told me, she said, you didn't go through all of this without using it to help others. And I said, I don't want to be cancer girl. And so, but she convinced me. And so we started an initiative. It's been about 4 years ago now, called tryingnottoDie.live. And that's actually the website URL also. But it basically is for anyone who is on a cancer journey, whether you have cancer or someone. We try and keep it positive, upbeat, right? I'm a pretty silly girl. But it's based on the premise that we get so caught up in whatever's going on, in trying to not die, that we forget that we have to live. And, maybe that's 5 hours, maybe that's 50 years, but how are we going to live during that time frame?
Yeah. Oh, I love it. I love that. I love that. You know what? I love not all of the things that go in, that make up the story, right? Like that process is always hard. It's tough. It's scary.
Oh, right? My scars have scars.
I know it, right? But I always think about, how did a cancer journey transform not just your priorities, but even the way that you lead and connect with other people. We're going to I want to talk about your business and the things that you're doing with Wise Women and the Power Hour and all the stuff that you've got going on. But I know that this journey transformed you completely.
Right.
So would you share with us just a little bit about, that transformation, your priorities, because some things became more important. Some things became less.
And it's funny because you mentioned that we grow from change. I did. Would I go through it again? Probably not. But yeah, it definitely made me rethink my priorities, made me rethink who I associated with, right? The toxic people, you get rid of them as much as you can. Sometimes they're your relatives, but yeah, you try and limit all of that. I also tell people, I don't want my headstone to say, I wish I would have. Right. So, what are we doing? Let's not have a bucket list. Let's just do, and as much as you can. Right. But, and one of the things that I really, now this is from my mother, who passed away about almost 2 years ago now. She would always say, you didn't say thank you. And that's where Trying Not to Die came in, that little part of the name, because she told, a medical person had been in and out of my room, and I got the disapproving mother face, and I said, "What?" And she said, "You did not say thank you." And I said, "For God's sakes, Mom, I'm trying to not die." But I try really, really hard to say thank you, to smile. I don't care if it's, the person at Starbucks or wherever, we can say thank you. And those things. And I also try and really tell the people who I care a lot about that I love them.
Yes.
And it's not the, "Hey dude, love ya." It's not that. It's very
real.
sincere, "I love you." Now it tends, on occasion it will totally throw somebody. But we don't say that. And I think there are so many people in our lives that we do love and appreciate, but we don't tell them that. And so I try really hard to do that. Do I have bad days? Yes. Ask my husband. He'll
tell us the truth.
Oh yeah, the good, the bad, the ugly. But I try and maintain as upbeat as I can.
Yeah. No, you know what? And that's so good. I mean, and I want to say maybe 5 or 6 years ago, I had the same thought about telling people that you love them. The people in your life are, I mean, my husband and I, we say it to each other, because it kind of becomes ritualistic. Almost.
Right.
It's kind of like, love
hey,
you,
dude, love ya.
Yeah, exactly. But I thought about, like our children, like when they're little and you pick them up and you give them kisses and you pinch their cheeks and and they're so adorable. And then they start getting older and they
don't want
young adults. Yeah. And it's like, yeah, leave me alone, Mom, get out of here. But I said, you know what, I am going to be very intentional about ensuring that my family knows that I love them, like for real, not that surface like you were talking about. But then also extend that past to other people who have really made a difference in my life, that have made me who I would say that I am. I think it's important to share the value that you find in other people, So no, I think that's great. You know what, when I always like to ask people, what has been bringing you joy or energy or purpose in this season of your life? Like right now, when it's the holidays, so we all are smiling and happy and all of that. But there's other things that just bring us real joy and energy and purpose. What is that for you?
It really is the people in my life. It's funny when I talk with other people who have been diagnosed with cancer or a serious illness, they talk about the people who ghost them, and that is such a weird phenomenon. And I've had it happen. I mean, people that I knew for years and years and years, nope, they're gone. And I don't know if it's they couldn't deal with the fact that, I had such a serious illness. Maybe the friendship had just run its course, right? But then there were people, and continue to be, who come into my life and bring such joy. And whether it's support, like I had my annual physical, which is really funny because I now have an annual physical twice a year because my primary care doctor wants to keep tabs on me. I'm cool with that. So I go in twice a year. And the lovely nurse who, did all the pre-op and all of that, or not pre-op, pre-prep, all that stuff. She was going to give me a flu shot. And we got to laughing so much. She said, "I can't give you the shot." She said, "I got to be steady." And so we had to, right? We had to calm down and
stop moment.
I know. And, and then she jabbed and then we went back to giggling. Right. But yeah, I mean, you never know who's going to come into your life, and whether it was somebody just like her, I mean, 5 minutes worth of conversation or somebody it's a really long-term type of thing, and when it comes down to it, love and friendship, things like that, that's all we really have. Money comes, money goes, all of those other things. But, who are your friends and your family?
Yeah. No, absolutely. You know what, when, I think about, or just as you shared there with the nurse and, having a moment, looking back, what early experiences do you think shape your gift for communication and connection? Because I can tell you are just, I know
I'm
you do some great
shy.
stuff with wise women. You know what I mean? Like I know it. I can just feel it. It just oozes out of you. So what were some of those early experiences that you think kind of shaped your gift?
Yeah, I had somebody tell me one time that I was shy, and I said, "Have you met me?" Um,
Really?
but so I'm an only child,
Okay.
and my mother was a very strong force of nature, might be the way to put it. And she just always told me, you need to stand up for yourself. I am at the tail end of being a baby boomer. And so, at that point, there were still some things that, girls didn't do.
Didn't do.
And my mom would be like, well, why not? Do you want to do it? Fine, then go do it. Including going to college and things like that. People said, will you go and you get a nursing degree or a teaching degree? Fabulous calling, right? Not for me.
Yeah.
But yeah, my mom was just, she was there pushing and pushing hard. I mean, there were times where I was not happy with how hard she pushed, but she was not going to let me sit in a corner and not do anything.
Yeah.
And I think that just always carried over. I am pretty sure that on all of my report cards, it said, will not shut up.
Yeah.
But,
I say that too.
I know, but and now there are times I tell people I'm an extroverted introvert. Sometimes I'm like, no, and sometimes that's like at networking meetings, I'll just go and not be feeling it. And so that's when you go and you find the one person in the room, right? But yeah, I tell people I can talk to a tree and and expect the tree to talk back to me. But yeah, it's just kind of always been there.
Oh, I love that. So you know what? Yeah, I think whatever is in you, it's your skills, it's your gifts, it's your talents that are natural, right? That really kind of make and force who you are or who you become. So before you launched Wise Women Communications and the Business Power Hour, who would you say you were becoming? Who are you becoming? Like you have mom you always have mom in the ear, right?
Yeah. The funny thing about my mom, she never ever told me that she was proud of me. I do not ever remember her saying that. And she passed away. It'll be 2 years ago in March. And people came up to me at the funeral and said, your mother was so proud of you. And that was very sweet. But I thought, why couldn't she ever tell me that? So maybe that goes along with telling people you love them.
You love them.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, but I was not a graceful child. My mother made me play sports, and I spent most of the time bruised and beaten up and all sorts of things because I was, not. But I originally wanted to be. I was going to be a performer. I was going to be a theater.
Really? What kind of performance?
Oh, I sang, and that's past tense because when they took out my thyroid, they damaged my vocal cords. And so I tell people I have 2 notes and they're not the right notes. But grand scheme of things, whatever. But yeah, I was going to be a performer. And then I was going to be a lawyer because I like to talk and I like to argue, right? But then I did discover fairly early on that I liked the communication aspects of business. So the first time I was really hired to do that was when I worked for the American Cancer Society. And I was the head of communications for each ACS is set up differently in the States. And all sorts of things. And we were actually a 7-state region because it's the Rocky Mountains. Idaho didn't need a big office. Montana didn't need a big office. So it all came out of Denver. And so I was the head of media and communications for this 7-state region. And I really, really liked it. And part of that was, helping people get their message heard. And that's, one of the big things that I tell people now with cancer is make sure that people are hearing your message and that it's your message and not somebody else's that's getting into the narrative.
Yeah. Oh, you know what? That's so good. Like you have to make sure that it is your message. Right. So what was the moment, just kind of pulling the thread there a little bit. What was the pivotal moment for you when you realized that your voice and your message could even help people beyond like traditional marketing? Like what was the pivotal moment for you?
It probably was when I was at the American Cancer Society, when we would do whatever it was. And then people would call, because this was long enough ago that, they either called or, they pretty much called, because we didn't have email, things like that. Or we did, but it was just kind of internal. And they would say, I saw your story on Channel 4 and I went and got checked and it saved my life. And just knowing that was incredible. And it wasn't me, it was my doctor, it was my whoever that I had, serving as the spokesperson for whatever that was, but I helped facilitate that. And I think that really is a big part of it is, when, and some people, just said simple things. Like I remember one time we ran a big campaign one time, and Denver has a large, or at that point, a large Russian community.
Oh, really? Okay. I didn't know that.
I was really surprised, and I'd been there my whole life. And we did some of our PSAs and in October for mammograms, right, in Russian. And we made sure that when we sent the mobile mammography units that they had a Russian translator. And we always had translators, and I love technology now, right? You don't have to have, but yeah, we made sure that they could be heard. We always had translators, depending on the communities that we were in, but to have a Russian translator was really something that was very important.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. You know what? I worked for Sam Rogers Health Center years ago. And the practice was started by an African American doctor who wanted to make sure that people of color had, got the same level of service and that type of thing. And over the years, because I think it was 20 years old by the time, when I started working there, but the populations of people that were being served was absolutely incredible. Like we had relationships with the Mexican consulate. There was a large Somali community that was in the area. And I was like, man, like when people, move from different countries and things like that, I'm like, how do they land in Kansas or how do they land in Missouri?
I know.
In the middle of the world, we're in the middle of the country. But there's a lot of organizations and groups and stuff that really help people to assimilate into the country, and then, get people, as people come in, those populations grow because as people continue to come in.
Yeah, because it tends to be multi-generational and things like that.
Absolutely. So it is always interesting to me too, like that people from other countries in great populations, end up in a place and you're like, how did I get here? Or why did you choose this particular place? But sometimes they get help. So thinking about like your expertise, you help leaders, everything that I've read about you help leaders find their voice online. What do you see as some of the biggest difference between noise and meaningful influence today? Because there's a lot out there.
Oh, and that's the problem is there's so much noise. Just social is incredible. And the changes that I've seen in my career, have been, incredible. And, we talk about controlling the narrative. And I think that's, in many cases, that's hard for people, especially if they're ill. You tell a CEO or business owner, hey, you've got cancer, and they don't want anybody to know because you're going to think they can't do their job. Right. And so the problem, and I've learned this a long time ago doing corporate communications, is if there is not information, people will make it up. And
that's good. I gotta write that down.
Say that again. We don't like that void. And the problem is when we make it up, we don't make it up good. Right. So maybe that CEO is coming in a little bit late every day and looking a little rough. So it's like, oh, she's drinking. We know she's drinking, right? And
that so happens. That so happens.
Yeah. And I've been very open with my journey, partially because I think it helps people. But hello, that's me. But people are going to disclose however much they feel comfortable with. And so I tell, business leaders, you need to tell them something. Otherwise they will make it up. And I say it can be just as simple as, I'm going through something with my health right now, but I need your help. and people will step up. And if they don't step up, then you've got a different problem with them, right?
Right.
But yeah, and because and maybe it's not you, maybe it's your spouse, your child, whatever. If you tell them I've got to leave at 3 every day, you don't have to tell them why. They're going to know from how you are that it's not you're going to soccer. You're going to something that's pretty heavy. And if you say, I'm going to come in earlier every day, but I'm going to have to leave at 3. And so, Bob, I need you to be in charge from 3 to 5. Bob's going to go okie dokie. And the cool thing is when we empower and delegate our employees, it just builds the business in its whole. And then heaven forbid, we might actually get to go on a vacation because we've delegated and empowered enough that we can do that. But yeah, we've got to control that narrative. Now, of course, my big thing is that we have to advocate for our own health. Just because that person has a whole bunch of initials after their name and they wear a white coat doesn't mean they know what's best for you. I mentioned that I chose the very traditional approach, and I still would, even knowing what I had, I would still do that just because for me, that's what I felt was the best course of action, right? Yeah. But if someone else thinks I'm going to do this and then I'm going to do, some non-traditional medicine, that's fine. I had somebody tell me one time, I know that chemo will kill me. I said, well, then you can't take chemo. I mean, it's just that simple.
Right.
And
because whatever you say is true.
Yeah. We manifest whatever that is. And, and I mentioned that I worked for an oncologist. It's over 35 years ago. And this man was way ahead of his time. And, and because he very much believed in you needed to do what was best for you, bringing nutrition, all sorts of other things into it. But he would tell people, 99% of this journey is in your head. If you think you're going to live, you will live. If you think you're going to die, you're going to die. Now, your diagnosis might mean that you were going to live 5 days, but again, how are you going to live during that time frame?
Yeah.
And we had patients that he would give the diagnosis and we never see him again because they chose that. And he was fine with it as long as it was an educated decision. So that's the other thing I tell people. And I know that you use AI a lot. I do too. I love AI. ChatGPT and I are best buds, right?
Yes.
But I had somebody tell me the other day, oh yeah, I was just diagnosed with cancer. I put it into ChatGPT and told it to tell me what treatment I should have. And luckily they couldn't see my face because it was a disapproving face like my mother's.
Yes.
And it's okay to say, what questions should I ask? That's a really good thing to put into AI.
That is.
Or to say, what does this mean? Because, you get all these things, but don't turn over your treatment to AI, folks. No.
No. I would definitely advise against that as well. I don't want ChatGPT to be my doctor. I still want to know what the doctor is saying. I want to understand what he's saying. So if I don't understand everything that he's saying, then I might ask ChatGPT, hey, break this down in layman terms for me. I don't understand this medication, what's made of.
And it's really good at that. It is very good at that. But again, we all know it's pulling from everything. So remember, it might not be correct. It still hallucinates.
Yes, absolutely.
I love that. I don't know who came up with that term, but I think that's the greatest term in the world.
It is. It has normalized hallucination in a way people can understand. All right. So I want to do what I'm calling now a lightning round. Quick spark. Okay. First thing that comes off the top of your head that you think I want you to share. So what belief about life or business have you most recently rewritten? Belief about life or business that you have most recently rewritten. We're changing narratives, right?
I'm in charge.
Oh, I love that. Go, Deb. I'm in charge. Too. And you need to be, right? Like you have to empower you. Like who's going to be the advocate for you if you're not?
Right.
Oh, I love it. Okay. Now, what's one practice you recommend for people to deepen either authentic connection online or offline?
Think first.
Mom used to say that, right? Like, think before you speak.
Don't type it. No.
Oh, that's, you know what? I think there's a lot to be said for thinking first, right?
Right.
Do that. Do that. All right. So because this show is really all about making change and advice. So I'm asking you here for advice for the change makers. For anybody facing a major life, cancer, or even if they're going through a career transition, what wisdom would you share that's been rooted in your journey?
Give yourself the grace to feel whatever it is that you're feeling. If you're afraid, if you're angry, all of those things, that's okay. You are the only one on that journey. And I am a certified grief counselor because we go through this, but I'm also a certified happiness counselor, right? But yeah, give yourself the grace to go through it. Know that it's not going to be a straight path. You're going to have ups, you're going to have downs, you're going to go backwards, but it's okay. And ultimately it all is okay. We can worry, we can fret, but it'll be okay.
Yeah. Oh, that's good. If someone needs permission, because I think sometimes people need permission to lean into their voice, not just the role or whatever that they're in, or, the circumstance or the situation necessarily that they're in. If they need permission to lean into their voice, how do you recommend that? What would you tell them?
First of all, think about why you think you need permission. Is it, like we said, the doctor is not God.
That's so true.
Is it your spouse? Is it your boss? Whatever it is, why do you think that you need permission? And I'm not saying this is going to change overnight. It might take a lot of deep thought. And I'm also not saying, most importantly, to go it alone. We have to have our community around us and supporting us, but it has to be the right community. So just kind of think about what's going on, and go from there and find trusted advisors.
Yeah. Oh, so good. So good. You know what? Now, I want to make sure that we spend a little time. Tell us about Trying Not to Die, Live, and how it reflects all your beliefs about living fully and not just surviving. I think people need to go there and check it out. As a matter of fact, you guys, all of the information is in the description. Make sure all the links, make sure that you go and check that out. But Deb, tell us a little bit more about that.
It's an initiative just to help people get through this journey. We do have a Facebook group, and the link is on the website. Anybody can be part of the Facebook group. It is a private group just because I want to keep out the snake oil salesman, shall we say. But yeah, and we try and be a very supportive community. One of the things somebody told me one time is they've never felt so alone in their life.
Oh, wow.
And we kind of do that to ourselves, but it also happens to us. So, how can we reach out and build that community? I do blog posts on there. There's resources. Excuse me. Now I've got the hiccups. I mentioned that I had a double mastectomy, and since it's just us girls here, one of the resources on there is called Knitted Knockers. And you can kind of guess what that is, right? And it's a great nonprofit organization that provides exactly what it says it does. But yeah, there's a lot of resources but it is a place to build your tribe.
Okay. No, I like that. That's so good. Knitted Knockers. I've got an aunt that had a double mastectomy a few years ago. And there's always things that could be better than prosthetics.
And of course mine are named. Of course mine are named, right?
Yeah.
Lucy and Ethel.
Maybe she could have Thelma and Louise. I don't know.
That was the hard thing. There's not a lot of powerful women partners. Those are the only 4 people that I could come up with. There's got to be more, right? We'll think about it. We'll think about it.
Yeah, we'll have to think about that one. I initially thought Charlie's Angel. I was like, well, no, there was 3 of them.
That's too many. And then there were 4. So then it got very confusing.
Yeah, that got way off. Oh, I like this. Deb, I want to first of all, I want to thank you for coming on today. It has been absolutely incredible. Your humor.
Thank you.
How did you become the comedian? Like, I feel like Deb is a comedian also. Where the humor?
I've always been the cut up. But we do know that humor and laughter help us heal. I mean, there are medical reasons for this. And one of the funny things is if you fake laugh, ha 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 ha, right? Your brain doesn't know it's a fake laugh, and you will get the benefits of that. I try and make my medical team laugh all the time. Like I said, she couldn't give me my shot because we were giggling too much. But they have really hard jobs. And so can we make them laugh?
I love that. I love it. All right. So Deb, so you've got the Try Not to Live. Also, we're going to share about Wise Women Communications. Give them just a snippet of Wise Women Communications, just so they know what they get.
Well, we are a full service marketing agency right now. And for the last about 10, 15 years, we've been focusing on working with senior living communities. One of the biggest growing markets out there.
Yes.
We do that. But yeah, you can find information about that on my website, which is debkrier.com.
Got it. Deb, it has been a pleasure. 3 quick tips are the biggest pieces of advice that you would give change makers.
You are in charge. Be your own advocate. Don't go it alone.
There you go. I love it. You guys, you've heard it here. Deb Krier is the one, the only, most amazing. Deb, thank you for joining me in the lab today. I so appreciate you. You're always welcome back here. You know that, right?
Thank you. This really has bbeen so much fun.
I'm glad you've enjoyed it. Well, family and friends, you've heard it here. Deb Krier, Try Not to Live. That's a great place for you to start build a community. It's a community that you can join. You can get resources, tools for those who may be experiencing or going through a cancer journey, but maybe you're just having some trouble, some things that's going on in life. It's a great place to be. You've met Deb. Thank you so much for being here, Deb. And everyone, thank you for tuning in. As you know, every Friday we come back with a new episode, and it's going to be something dynamite. So don't forget to click the bell so that you can get the notifications, and send this episode over to a friend or a family member, a neighbor. They will appreciate you for doing just that. And until next Friday, have a great day.
Bye.